world, what is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. I'll take you back. January 31st, 1992, our next guest at the age of 23 was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment by a federal judge in Columbus, Ohio, as a first-time non-violent offender for distribution of drugs. Now, while incarcerated, he began a process of discovery and self-improvement through which he's since taught tens of thousands of federal prisoners, received over 100 certifications, and authored a bunch of new program curriculums ranging from anger management to mental wellness. Released from prison in 2015, he's since become a highly sought-after public speaker, life coach to numerous celebrities, and through his book, I Will Not Be Denied, Mastering the Changes, he is sharing his wisdom in his words. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the great Charles Silk Dunn. Make some noise. Come on, let's do it up.
Thank you.
Charles, first of all, congratulations on the book, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a fantastic job. And welcome to the show. It's so exciting to have you here.
Hey, thank you. Man, I'm honored to be here. I really appreciate you guys for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. I saw a really cool post that you had put up on your Instagram. Are you guys going around the city? I saw you outside, the excitement there. I also saw you were saying that this is an experience you're exposed to, a lot of things you have been exposed to before. Does that mean in New York, or does that mean the press tour, or just the whole thing in general? Talk to me.
The press tour and New York. I've never been to New York.
This is your first trip?
Ever.
Welcome, sir.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. And what I like most about New York is the energy.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're in a community that has a lot of dead zones in it, it brings your vibration down. But when you're in a city that's popping, your ideas popping, and then you get creative. You understand what I mean? So I just feel the energy here in New York.
Have you received? Have you thought of any new ideas? Have you just been vibing off of that energy since you got off the plane? Has it been an adjustment for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been thinking about just being here makes me feel like that I'm just getting started. I got a lot of work to do, man. Yeah, man. Got a lot of work to do.
Well, for sure. I'm excited to have you here. I'm glad you're enjoying your first trip. Right. Hang on. If this is your first time in New York, we're going to talk about the book. We're talking about this in a second. Yeah. But what New York things are you doing? What have you done? Where you got to go still?
Well, I went to Americana. I've been doing, being away from society, I got to catch up on fashion. I got to know, this is fashion capital.
You look like you're doing all right, sir. I'll tell you right now. You look pretty good right now.
Well, it's I have to really catch up with the times, so I got to just do a lot of shopping and do a lot of observing and just trying to figure out what my style is.
Well, I like where it's at right now. I'll tell you that much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's do this. Before we get into the book, let's dial it back a second, because for those that aren't familiar with your journey, which is an incredible journey, it's funny. I came into the green room. I said, "Congrats on the book," and one of your friends was like, "Congrats on life, man! Like, I'm figuring it out. Like, your journey is a remarkable journey.
Thank you.
And you've done some amazing things and turned some stuff in amazing directions. Just give a little context for those that aren't familiar with your story, and tell us a little bit about you, man.
Okay. Well, I was born in Dayton, Ohio. Dad's from Detroit, so I was raised back and forth, Dayton, Detroit. I have an older brother that I looked up to and I admired a lot. So growing up, he was like this huge superstar. When he came out of high school, 300-something scholarships to go, talented in football and basketball. But what happened was, and I had never used or sold drugs up until that point, but I idolized him. I actually lost my identity in him. I wanted to be him. And anybody that has a father figure or older brother or sister know what that's like, to just be like, wow, I wish I could not be me and be that person. Yeah. Well, my brother didn't have good grades, so he had to go to what's called a JUCO, a junior college. So going to junior college, they pay for your tuition, but not your room and board. So he started selling drugs to pay for that. And the momentum of that behavior, when he came out of junior college and went to Iowa, he continued to sell drugs. And he ended up getting drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He played for Iowa Hawkeyes for 2 years. And he came to Columbus, Ohio. I was attending Columbus State at the time. And he said, "Chuck, I'm done. No more drugs. I got my signing bonus from the Pittsburgh Steelers." So we thought we made it.
Yeah, that was it.
3 or 4 days before his first preseason game from the Pittsburgh Steelers, he went back to Iowa to clean up the rest of his belongings, and he got set up with the last 5 ounces of coke, and he got blackballed. He got indicted, and I literally lost my mind. I was in college, majored in business management. It's my freshman year, and I just remember blacking out. I just remember tearing up my whole apartment because I felt like that the streets had deprived my brother and myself out of this lifestyle that I felt was owed to us. And I vowed to seek vengeance on the street. So when I got in the drug game, I didn't get into it with under any illusion like it was my friend or that was the thing to do. It was strictly vindictive. Yeah. So, 2-3 years after that, I got charged with running a multi-million-dollar drug ring. They charged me with a charge called a CCE, Controlling Criminal Enterprise, and I was the youngest person to get charged with that charge in Ohio's history.
Wow. That is, first of all, thank you for sharing that story, because I know you've had to tell that a lot, and it can't be easy to relive some of those details and go back, but I appreciate you sharing that with us. Yeah. That is a dangerous situation for you to find yourself in, and a dangerous energy to enter it with, to be that filled with vengeance and rage and anger, and to enter that world. You know, when you found yourself incarcerated, and here you are, you know, you've lost your brother to this broken system. You've lost your freedom to this broken system. Right. Do you recall a moment where you decided, I need to take charge of this situation, I need to turn things around? Was there a spark, a moment of inspiration that hit you that readjusted the path that you thought you were on?
It was so much. It started in the county jail and then moved to the first federal penitentiary I was in. I witnessed so many men that were broken. I'm talking about guys wanted to commit suicide. People didn't even know how to write letters to their loved ones, to their wife, to their children. And they would say, hey, man, do you know how to write? Do you know how to read? Yeah, can you help me write a letter to my son or to my daughter? They're acting up in school. And what ultimately happened, I say a quote all the time. I say, have you ever seen a ball stop rolling halfway down a hill? And the answer to that is no, because the momentum you create becomes bigger than your life itself. So what I was doing in helping people, I didn't realize I was actually helping myself. I can remember when I got to the first penitentiary, it was a 60-year-old guy who was trying to get his GED. Yeah. And I took my time to help him learn how to read and write. And it was just that momentum, man, that just carried on. I realized then sometimes you got to stop doing what you were taught to do long enough to discover what you were born to do. Yeah.
This book has come out recently, but this book is years in the making. I mean, it's taken a lifetime of experience. And when do you think you could say that you truly started work on this book?
I was in solitary confinement. I was actually, nothing is worse than being in a jail's jail. It's one thing to be in prison, but then when you find yourself in a prison's prison, and it's the example of being in your bathroom and your tub is a bunk, and there's no windows, and there's only a little chute for them to put food through, and it's dark. I was in there for something I did not do, and I ultimately was vindicated, and I ended up getting out of there. But while there, I always looked at my prison bed as there's nothing to waste, no time, no emotion. So if I find myself in a place, I must put meaning in that motion. I must have purpose in the now moment. I don't have time to sit up here and wallow in it and park in that space. No, I have to find something. So at that point, I was fasting. I said, I'm going to stop eating. I started drinking just water for 2-3 days, and it came to me. I want to write 4 books. I actually have written several books. This is just the first one I put out.
So this is the first one you put out, because you referenced another book that you've written in this book, and I was like, oh, let me go look that up, and I couldn't find it. I was like, oh, where's that? So this is the first one to come out in the series of books.
Exactly.
Is it the first one, like, if in terms of the order in which you wrote them? Is this the first one you wrote, or is
yes, yes. It's actually the first one I wrote, but when I was sitting in solitary confinement for 90 days, I actually I saw it. I had it. I was clear. And what I try to tell people, you have no idea what it feels like, man, to get reintroduced to yourself, to recenter yourself, to be able to purge away all the bills and all the calls and all the expectations and find out who you are and calm yourself long enough to get messages and fulfill a deeper purpose for you and not for everyone else.
That is a really amazing thought to try to wrap my head around, because you're right. A lot of us, we get so wrapped up, so consumed in what we're doing every day, that the thought of to just be in a situation where it's you and your thoughts and you inside yourself, and you have to explore what comes of that is pretty amazing.
You know, it's the example I try to tell people is when you put pressure on the orange, you get orange juice. You put pressure on the grape, you get grape juice. Correct. When you put pressure on someone's life, the intestinal essence comes forth. So until you have that pressure, until you go through some things in your life, you're really just following the follower. So when you find yourself going through those traumatic experiences, you have to embrace that pain and calm yourself. Don't get wrapped up in the emotion of it, like, oh, this is terrible. Nah, calm yourself and try to see what good can I get out of this.
How do you, an individual who has been in extraordinary circumstances of pressure, how have you learned to calm yourself, to control those emotions? Because we all want to. Those are great ideas. We want to do that. But when we're in that moment, sometimes for a lot of us, it's hard to actually put those words to work.
Very true. That's exactly why I wrote this book. The first thing you have to do is slow your breathing down. Yeah. Manage your emotions. In this society, we become emotional eaters, emotional spenders, emotional responders. First thing you got to do when something happens is say, let me not respond. Let me just dial it back. And sometimes the best decision to make is no decision. Don't make a move. Just calm your breathing down and try to look at things objectively. And then you have to put people around you that's not reactionary, because if you just react to things, you're going to find yourself apologizing a lot in your life, because you're always saying things out of impulse and stop yourself, calm yourself down. Most of the things that we go through is not as bad as they appear to be.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier when we first started out, and we were joking around. You're talking about you got a lot of catching up to do with your fashion,
right.
But it got my wheels spinning and thinking. A lot of the things you're talking about are universal truths that as human beings. But I'm curious to your reaction when you got back out and you saw what technology has done to us, and the way, because for all of us it's been gradual over time.
Woo!
But you came out and all of a sudden here was this world where we all had these little mini computers that we were obsessed with, and it was a whole new planet. And I'm just very interested in your perspective on what that's done to us as a culture and what you've observed.
No one has asked me that question. No one since I've been out in 3 years. So I really want to respond to that.
Please go, sir.
We have gotten so wrapped up with the cell phone, we've lost the soul phone. Like, the human connection is so weakened right now. Like, we have the ability to feel our loved ones. Like, if you have a child or son or daughter and something's not right with them, if we weren't so consumed with texting and looking on the phone and artificial substances, everything in your vibration, you can feel it. You might get a headache, you might get a cramp in your stomach. So when I come out here, the world looks at people that's coming out of prison like they're behind. No, the world is behind. It's not weapons of mass destruction. It's weapons of mass distraction. People are so distracted in how they don't know how to raise their children anymore. They don't know how to hone into their gifts, because if the internet or Siri or Google don't tell them, they lose it.
It's true. I remember, I was born in '85, and so I grew up in a time right in the cusp where I got to experience and see before the technology and grow up with it and after it. And I remember there was a ton of stuff where we would look around and go, who was in that movie? And then we just wouldn't know until that movie was on again. Whereas, like, now, if we're at dinner, it was like, what's the name of that guy? Everybody's phone, and we all look it up right away. But we're comfortable with that now. We're used to that.
Our memories is a muscle. Yeah. And people don't even know their daughters or their sons' phone. What's so-and-so's phone number? Everybody got to go to their contacts. Are you serious? Like, everybody was like, oh, the phone number's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But we don't understand how disconnected we have become as a society. And coming home, I'm looking at, when you go down the street, everybody's head is like this. You go to a restaurant, everybody's head is like this. And they said, oh, Mr. Dunn, you know, we feel so sorry for you. You did all that time. Feel sorry for me, and I feel sorry for you all. Do you understand how disconnected you guys are? What I'm doing is not incredible. I'm just walking in what I was born to be doing. And when you following the follower and everything is about technology, you're lost in it. In one of the curriculums I created, I used this example. There was a guy locked up in federal prison. He was one of the designers of one of the cricket phones. And he said that as a society, we use about 40% of what our cell phones could really do. Like, people don't really know all the things their cell phone can do. And as he's talking about the cell phone, I'm thinking about the human earth suit. Because I'm saying to myself, we are not human beings. We're spirits having a human experience, and this is an earth suit. So what happens when you find your earth suit in a situation, you look at the situation and you let the environment dictate what can happen, but it's just a situation. It's not your spirit. Yeah. So just like you don't know how to use your cell phone, all the full capacity of your cell phone, we have yet to identify with all the wonderful things that we can do as a spirit traveling in this human experience when we eat right and we have the right friendships in our life, the right inspiration. So I'm looking at this like, wow. It's like, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of how we can get back to that and how we can do that within this book. I can't help but wonder, can you describe to me for you what it was like the first time you saw a stack of these printed out? You know, it was just a vision in your head that you had seen years ago, and now here it is. It's a real thing. People are buying it. People are reading it. There was a great review on your Amazon from one of the inmates that you had helped about the book. What is that like to see that vision realized and see it become a thing in the universe?
I'm going to tell you what it's like. First of all, you're a great interviewer.
Oh, my gosh, thank you so much.
No, for real. Yeah, everybody give him a round of applause, because he's good. This man is good. No, seriously, because you're asking really good questions.
I appreciate that.
Watching that pile of books, when I opened up that box to see those pile of books, felt better than coming home from prison. I tell people all the time, coming home from prison didn't move me. I was interviewed when I first got out, and they asked me, hey, how do you feel coming home from prison? And I said, I feel the same way I felt when I was in prison 30 minutes ago, because I never bought the prison program of what it's supposed to feel. It's like you say, hey, the example I gave them to correlate that with the book, I said, how do you feel when you walk from your living room to your kitchen? Do you feel any different? And she's like, no. I said, because you take you with you. Well, when that line was drawn, as if when I walk past that line, I'm supposed to feel punished and bitter and upset. And I never bought the prison program. That's what allowed me, through the grace of God, to be able to do the things I was doing, because I never felt the weight of, it's just space. Yeah. You own your joy. Stop allowing people to make you feel or to make you think that you need them to feel happy or you need to be in a certain place to feel a certain way. So that didn't work with this book. Me managing when I saw those books printed, that was the greatest feeling in the world to me. That's why I said that's a great question. That question felt better to me than walking out of prison doors after doing 24 years.
That's a beautiful thing. I'm going to hold for applause real quick, because that's amazing, right? I'm getting a signal. We got a question. We're going to go in just a second, but you mentioned this was the first, I want to say 4. You said of 4 books that you wrote?
Yes.
Are you excited? How much further down the road do we got to wait for the next one? What are your plans? What are the next ones about? You tackle a lot in this book about the earth suit, as you called it, understanding yourself and harnessing your energy and using it for good, which I can feel all of that coming off you, man. It's such good vibes. So what do you tackle in the next book and the book after that?
The next book is Nothing to Waste in a Wasteland, Fresh Out the Dumps. I say if we look at prison as the wasteland of America, but federal prison, I'm here to tell you, got some of the most brilliant minds in the world. You got guys like Bill Gates that was on his way to federal prison. When I was reading, they were saying he was monopolizing the computer industry. He had to compartmentalize or break his company down. You have geniuses there. So Nothing to Waste in the Wasteland is about flashing a light on what we don't even think about in these people that's in federal prison. Geniuses. I mean, these guys from Wall Street and stockbrokers and bank managers and we have turned them into the undesirables. And what I said inside that book, if they're really undesirable, let these guys go to a third world country and watch how fast that third world country thrives.
So that's the next one. That's no waste, no waste.
So the third book is called Would You Follow You? The Silk Initiative Leadership Manual. I'm saving that one.
All right, we're going to see what happens after that one. I'll ask you one last question.
Yes.
Where's Silk come from?
Well, that was the street name. What happened back in 87, 88, when I was young, when I first got into the drug game, there was some old gangsters. They used to see how laid back I was, and they used to say, man, you a silky smooth dude, man. You always laid back and speaking to people. And when I started introducing myself as Chuck, he said, listen, when you get in these streets, you need a name that begins and ends in the street. So you need to have a nickname. And that name, Silk, just carried
with
on.
you. Wow, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything you've shared. We're going to take our question, but I want to remind everybody, I Will Not Be Denied. Mastering the Changes is available now. You can get it on Amazon, and you should. It's a fascinating read. So we got one for us. Where's it coming from? Right over here. Microphone. Go ahead. Go for it.
Hi, my name is Kaylin. I was wondering, you inspire a lot of people, and I wondered who kind of like keeps you going and inspires you in your everyday life to keep wanting to do stuff like that?
Wow, excellent question. What I mentioned in I Will Not Be Denied, I stay loaded. Prince Machiavelli, Khalil Gibran, I'm always putting and reading Langston Hughes, Rudyard Kipling. It started many years ago, but in my book I talk about get loaded. So, and that's an excellent question because you have to be putting more in you when you're pushing out. So I'm always picking up a book and reading it and recentering myself.
That's a great question. There was one other that I wanted to ask you, talking about who inspires you and who keeps you going. There was a thing you discussed early on, the significance of adults in our formative years, and you talk about your amazing grandmother. You talk about how your aunt helped you love the skin that you were in, literally, and all those important people. And I'm curious if there is a specific memory or moment from your childhood that you can draw a direct line from that moment to your success now and say, because I was there at this time with this person, I'm able to be this person I am here today. If there's a moment that stands out.
I watched my mom every night. She fell asleep with a book on her chest. I never knew what that book was growing up. I was I would sneak in and try to lay down at the foot of her bed. And it wasn't until I got 4 or 5 years old that I realized that it was the Bible. And her dedication to just filling her spirit up with what she felt like she needed is something that I always knew I had to do. I had to stay loaded. I had to stay loaded with that spiritual food because everything in life is a battle, but if you have no mental or emotional artillery, how can you ever win the war?
Yeah. Well done. Well done, sir. All right, well, I'm getting the signal. We got to wrap things up, but I want to thank you again sincerely for coming here and sharing your time and your energy with us, man.
Thank you.
And congratulations on this book. I'll remind the world once again, I Will Not Be Denied. Mastering the Changes is available right now on Amazon and where fine books are sold. Everybody, please make a ridiculous amount of noise. Join me in thanking Mr. Charles Silk Dunn.
All right, thank you. Thank you.